Well, here we are, live coaching. It's Thursday, December 3rd. I'm Shannon Lee, Executive Director of Relā. So excited to be here. And I'm just going to chat with folks for a little bit until we get some folks going on the live stream and answer questions. And really, in a coaching live stream, I don't know if it's really more about answering questions. In a live coaching event, the way I would think about it, maybe more accurately, would be asking different questions. Not necessarily better questions, although they could be better questions. But coaching is a lot like having someone reflect something back to you and having them ask different questions. So to open things up, I thought it would be a really good idea to talk about what is coaching, at least in the way that we talk about coaching here at Relā. And one of the best ways for me to describe coaching is to really talk about what coaching is not. So coaching is not therapy. Coaching is not advice giving. It is not mentoring, and it is not counseling. And there's a lot of reasons. I could talk for an hour just on why coaching is not those things. Now, within a coaching relationship with a coach and client, is it possible that the client may at some point say, I'm trying to figure this out, I could use your input, and they want some kind of input, which would be similar to advice giving. In my opinion, when a coach enters into giving input, it's important that the coach kind of nuances their response, and this is based on my lived experience, based on what I have gone through and what I've experienced. You may not experience the same thing. Just because you as a coach have a lot of experience in a certain area doesn't mean that what you did is going to work for someone else. So it's really important that you don't bias the relationship by just inputting all kinds of advice with your client. And so we don't normally do that when we are working with clients and coaching. Something else to understand about coaching is every coach has a slightly different style and methodology, right? So the way I might coach someone's going to be different than someone else. And those different methodologies serve different purposes. There's meditation coaches, there are yoga coaches, there are mindfulness coaches, life coaches, business coaches, and even within those, what one life coach specializes in might be different. For example, I know some amazing life coaches that specialize in things like weight loss, or to stop drinking or to drink less, or life coaches that help business leaders with the personal side of having their own business. And so there's so many different even subcategories of each of those other categories of coaches. Some coaches are highly, highly trained from national and even international organizations. Some of the coaches we work with are master certified, especially our emotional intelligence coaches. Whenever you're dealing with emotions, I think it's important to work with folks that have a lot of training when you are honing in on someone's emotional environment. And so we partner with some emotional intelligence coaches. Other coaches have created their own coaching methodology. And this has been based on years of their experience and what they know work with clients. And so, but there are some basic guidelines I think that all coaches follow. And I'm not going to go into that tonight, but I thought it would be kind of interesting to open with that. We do use a certain methodology here, and we call it the hula hoop. And that really doesn't mean a whole lot to you right now, but it's called the hula hoop of change. And it's a methodology that kind of takes a little bit of psychology, a little bit of cognitive behavioral therapy, as well as some common sense. And it combines all of that in helping people short circuit the patterns in their life that are not working for them, the patterns that maybe they're conscious of or unconscious of. And I might dive into it tonight, depending on what kind of things you all want to be coached on. I've got an eye on the comments, and I'm just waiting to see if any comments come in. If you have a coaching question for me or a scenario you'd like to present to me that I could coach on, please do that in the comment section. But what I'm going to do is I want to let you know about another free opportunity to get some training. This will not be coaching, but it will be training. And I've put a link in the chat. And what this is, it's a link to a Zoom that takes place next Thursday. It's December 10th. And you can choose from 9 a.m. or noon. And it is for a 1-hour free workshop where we break down for you the hula hoop model. And we don't break it down for you from the perspective of a coach, because that's not what most people are going to be interested in. We break it down for you in terms of what does the hula hoop model mean for you as an individual, and how do you use it to essentially change your own thinking and change your own feeling. And we talk a lot about feelings on this, on that session. We talk a lot about thought patterns. We talk about removing judgment from our thought patterns so that we can kind of stand outside of them and do something about them. So that is coming up on the 10th. And again, there's a link in the comments, and in that link, we'll just take you to Zoom and you can choose a time. Okay. So I'm just going to pause for a moment and see if anyone is posting any comments or questions. Just taking a look. The platform we're using is StreamYard, and I'm pretty sure I'm doing this correctly. Jason, who is my silent partner here, let me know if there's anything different I need to do to view comments. I'm seeing the post that I just sent, so it looks like everything's working. So I think we're good to go. One of the things that I think that I'll dive into as I wait to see if anybody wants to be coached on something specific. And by the way, if you want to be coached on something specific, you can, and you don't want to be identified, if you'd like, you could just send me a quick email at shannonlee@relayleadership.org. And then that way you don't have to post it in the comments. Some people, when they want to be coached on something, they don't want other people to know that they want to be coached on something. And so if you send me a quick email, I've got my phone right here. I'll check my emails and see if I get anything from anybody. But let me put my email in the comments. And if I get anything there, I will assume that means you don't want to be identified, but you still want to be coached on something. And so you can always send me a private message there as well. But to open things up, I think I'd like to open up with a common coaching problem or coaching issue. I think this is probably the most common situation I run into, whether I'm coaching a business client, someone who is looking for career coaching, or career coaching is the wrong word, someone who's looking for coaching around what's going on at work, I should say, as well as folks who struggle with just their kind of like how things are going in their personal life. And it's the same problem, it just presents itself in different ways. And what that is this belief that what other people do, that we are at the effect of that. And here's what I mean. As soon as we say something, as soon as I hear something from someone and they say, well, they hurt my feelings, or they made me feel disrespected, or they made me feel hurt, they made me feel sad, they made me feel angry. All of these things, because what happens in our emotional lives happens so quickly, and it happens immediately after a trigger of some kind, an event of some kind. So someone says something to you, or they don't, maybe they ignore you, or maybe just any kind of event has happened, and we immediately get angry. So it is quite natural for us to believe that someone else is making us feel that way. Someone else is making us feel that way. And so Jason's not actually, you all can't see Jason. But if I were to say to Jason right now, Jason, I love you. Or if I were to say that to anybody on the live stream, I love you. And then my next question would be, do you feel love? And you would say, well, no, I mean, that's not the way love works, right? Just because someone says I love you doesn't mean that I feel love. That's because feelings don't hop out of me and into you. And we understand that about positive emotions, and specifically about something very strong like love or adoration or affection, that just because someone expresses love to us doesn't mean that we feel love. Think about, kind of go back to middle school when someone had a crush on you that you were like, ew, right? And this isn't making fun of anybody. This is just a reality of, adolescent romance. Someone had a crush on you and they might have said that they really like you or they really love you. Did you feel love? Did you feel affection? No. because that's not where feelings come from. They don't come from other people. So the next piece that we would dive into with the client is, well, where does that feeling come from? Well, feelings come from thoughts. Feelings come from thoughts. And because it happens so quickly in the blink of an eye, we don't readily recognize that when the event occurred, we thought something and then we felt something. Now, just because we noticed the feeling first doesn't mean that it happened out of order. It just means that it entered our awareness in our emotions first. For some of us, and this is me, I'm more aware in my body when I'm having specifically a really strong positive or a really strong negative emotion. I notice in my body first. And what I mean by that is when I'm feeling very anxious, even anxious, excited, I feel it kind of right underneath my sternum. And when I'm feeling that way, if it becomes uncomfortable or damaging, and I'm going to come back to that in a moment, but if that feeling becomes uncomfortable or damaging, or I shouldn't say uncomfortable, if it becomes damaging, I'm going to think about, oh, that's interesting. I'm having that feeling in my body. I wonder, like that sensation in my body, I wonder what feeling is creating that. And I'm going to really get in touch with, oh, yeah, that's that anxiety coming back. Hello, I see you there. And I'm going to notice that. And then the process continues, and I say, I wonder what's creating that feeling. What was I thinking just before all of this? What's going on? What am I believing to be true about this circumstance, about this event? See, you get to believe what is true. You get to believe it's just a thought. Thoughts can't hurt you. Now, the truth remains that we do have limiting thoughts and liberating thoughts, for sure. Limiting thoughts tend to create damaging feelings. Notice that I did not say bad feelings. As human beings, we have good feelings and we have bad feelings, right? If your grandmother or grandfather or close friend or family member, somebody that you care about, if they pass away, do you feel sad? Probably. Will you grieve? Probably. Will it feel bad to you to go through that? Yeah. That doesn't mean that that bad feeling is damaging, but here's the thing. We humans, we are wired for pleasure. And so, because we're wired for pleasure, the first thing we do is we try to resist or get rid of that feeling. And one of the ways we do that, there's a million ways that we do that, but we judge it as being bad or wrong. And if something's bad or wrong, then we better get rid of it. And instead, I encourage my clients to welcome the feeling and to make space for it because it reduces the power. It also gives our brain space to really think about, okay, what thought brought that feeling on, that damaging feeling? See, a bad feeling becomes damaging when it harms ourselves and when it harms others. So here's what I mean by that. It is quite natural and healthy to be angry about certain things. But when my anger transforms to resentment, it has now gone from a bad negative emotion to a damaging emotion. And I hope that made sense. I've got a couple things coming in here. How can one transition or reduce the many work streams at our job to a vital few? I think that this could help us balance our days and deliverables. Scott, can you say more about what you mean by our many work streams? I'm not sure I understand what you mean by a work stream. Transition or reduce the amount of work streams. So until I hear back from Scott, I'll keep talking about that. So when we think about this tiered event, that we have an event and then we have a thought, a feeling, and an action. The thing I want you to understand about feelings and actions is, generally speaking, our feelings motivate our actions. Now, that doesn't mean that we aren't aware of how we're feeling and that we're angry and that we're about to say something we regret and that we stop and we monitor ourselves there. For sure, many people do that. And oftentimes we do it because of manners. We do it because of social mores. We do it because of expectations in the workplace, let's say. But what I'm talking about is, what if we could stop the damaging feeling in the first place? What if we could change it? What if we could transform it into something more productive? And so we talk about that a lot in our coaching. Okay, I hear from Scott. So how can we reduce how many irons we have in the fire if we have lots of projects, lots happening at the same time? Well, Scott, I love this question because, well, first of all, it's going to be specific to your organization, to your job responsibilities. So what I'm going to share is, it's going to be challenging to nuance it for you, since I don't know, in a coaching relationship, I would know a lot more about the day-to-day work, etc. But here are a few things that, from a coaching perspective, that I would ask a client to look at very carefully. And I'm going to tell you by sharing a story. So one time I was sitting in my office, and Relā is a nonprofit. And so my bosses are the board of directors. Okay. So just to kind of help you understand the players here. And I was sitting there at my desk, and I happened to have a meeting with the executive director, with the president of the board at that time. And he was giving me some things that we needed to work on and reminding me of some strategic initiatives, and just kind of wanted an update. And I was saying how I just didn't have time for everything. I felt like there was just too much going on. And he said, "Would you like some help with that?" I said, "Sure." And he said, if you don't mind, let me take a look at your schedule and your to-do list. And there's very specific, he knew there's a specific way that I keep track of those things. I use Trello for project and task management. And of course I use Outlook for all of my calendaring. And so I said, "Here you go." And I turn my laptop around, and he starts looking at my to-do list and the deadlines I've given myself. He starts looking at my meetings, and he said, "I see your problem." He said, "You are prioritizing things that shouldn't be prioritized. And there are some things that maybe you need help prioritizing," meaning there were things that I was making very, very important that were not even supposed to be, worked on for another 6 months, probably because they were more interesting to me. And then on the other end, there were several things that were getting really, really close to a deadline that I had been putting off. And so what was happening is I had all these things going at the same time, when a lot of it I had a lot more control over it than I thought I did. The first step, Scott, is that we move out of victim thinking to creator thinking. So victim says that I am at the effect of all my projects. There's nothing I can do about it. I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place. And I am, I'm at the mercy and the pleasure of whoever I work for. Right? Whether it's my shareholders, a CEO, a supervisor, manager, whoever. The reason why it's important to first move out of, and I'm not saying you're in victim mode. What I'm saying is, I find this is often the case, that we first want to start with our mindset. And if we believe that we are at the effect of everything going on around us, we are essentially in victim mode. And some of us are so good at this, we're like competing to be the biggest victim. We talk about how busy we are. We tell everybody how much we just can't get it done. We have to work 16-hour days. Like we almost revel in it. We wear it like I've got a little blanket here on the back of my chair. We wear it like a comfy blankie. And so creator mode moves from being at the effect of what's going on around us to creating what's going on around us, and asks, what does all of this make possible? And the reason why that's so powerful is because it takes, whenever I feel like I'm at the effect of something and I'm like, there's nothing I can do. I don't know how to get rid of these things. I don't know how to reduce my, projects, let's say. Just that thought process alone limits our choices. Our brain is already shutting down, believing that there isn't an answer. And so we will miss options and opportunities to solve our own problem. I believe as a coach that what we need is already in us to manage and to, in this case, organize and reduce projects. The problem is we believe that we are at the effect of all of this, which keeps us in a victim thinking. And victim thinkers are, and we all can get there, by the way, and it's not your fault. That's not my fault. It's nobody's fault. Our brains are kind of wired this way. It has to do with the amygdala and how when we get under any kind of stress or anxiety, that fight or flight kicks in, and we immediately go, well, there's nothing I can do. That is actually a fight or flight response. And so we want to move out of that victim to creator. And the creator says, what does this make possible? The creator says, what are my choices? What choices do I have around all of these projects? And when I work with clients, I require them to come up with at least 5 choices around any one circumstance that they're finding unmanageable. 2 choices is not enough because that's a rock and a hard place, isn't it? So instead, I say 3 to 5, but I really want them to get to 5. One of those choices is always to do nothing, that I stay right where I am, overwhelmed with projects. But here's the difference. Even if that's one of your choices and you choose it, it's still different than defaulting to that. When we default to that, we're in victim mode. When we choose it, we're in creator mode. When we say, you know what, I've got a lot of projects going on and I've considered all of these 5, 6, 7 choices of what I can do about it. And I've decided, at least for today, that I'm not going to decide today, that I'm just going to do my very best, but there's really nothing I can do about it today. I'm going to look at it again in a week. But you're choosing that. You're choosing to do nothing about the problem. That is not victim mode. That is creator mode, because you've brought it to the conscious level and made a choice. But when we identify our choices, it becomes very empowering. I actually find that when I identify my choices, more choices come to me. Like it becomes almost this regenerative activity where I think of more and more things that are possible. Now, maybe all of those choices are not possible as far as right now, or maybe they are not all realistic today. But to get my brain into the mode of thinking and creating and dreaming puts me in the emotional state that I need to be in to actually better manage all of the projects that I have going on. It helps me think clearly and to make better decisions. When we are in fear and in victim mode, our brain shuts down the analytical side of thinking. In other words, what it does is it says, here's point Z, here's point A, here's the quickest path. And what happens when we're on the quickest path is we are missing other opportunities. That's why they put blinders on horses in races, because they want them to go one direction, to be steered a certain way, and to go full force, right? That's what we do too when we feel like we're honed in, when we're pinned in a corner. And so this opens up our thinking. So that's the first step. The first step is just to really recognize, am I pinning myself in a corner? Am I believing that there's nothing I can do? Because I don't know, you haven't said that, but I find that that's often the case. If so, I'm saying, I want to move from victim to creator. And the creator says, what does this make possible? And then the creator starts to list what choices they have in the situation. Something more tactical than that, Scott, is delete, delay, delegate. This isn't new. This is something I do every week. I've made a habit out of this. Every Friday, I look at my Trello to-do list and I look at all of my appointments coming up. I look at Trello for the next week, and then I look for my appointments in the next 2 weeks. And I decide, is there anything on this to-do list that can be delayed? How I decide if it can be delayed is if it's actually needed to be done more than 30 days from now. And I know I don't need 30 days to get it done. So I get it off my list. And the reason why I love Trello is because I won't have to remember. I just put a different due date on it and move it over. Okay. So whatever process works for you. I get it off my to-do list. Just delaying certain things that can be delayed and getting them off my immediate to-do list decreases the overwhelm, decreases what I feel like I have to work on today. Then delete. I like to do delay first, but I say delete first. Delete is anything that doesn't need done in the next 90 days, I get rid of it. Or I delay it out 90 days, but I get rid of it. If it's not important in the next 90 days, it's not important. It's just not. Now, there are some annual initiatives that have 90-day benchmarks. Well, that stays on there because there's something needs to happen every quarter, of course. And not knowing your specific circumstance, it would be hard for me to speak to that. But generally speaking, and here's what happened. When my board president looked at my to-do list and looked at my calendar, he said, Shannon, there's stuff on here that we're not even actioning until next year. Why do you have this on here now? I realized there were things that I was prioritizing that didn't need to be prioritized. And so I delete, delay, and then whatever I could delegate that I could not add my unique value to, which is a whole other topic, then that's what I do. I'll say one thing about unique value. And Scott, I don't know if you're a leader, if you have direct reports, but a lot of leaders that I work with, I find that their project list and to-do list and workload is so heavy because they haven't developed others to the point that they can truly delegate to them. And that's not a blame thing. That's a choice that you have. It's a choice to not develop people. Whenever someone says to me, well, but they're not good enough yet. Okay, but what have you done today about getting them good enough? And so oftentimes our projects build up and our to-do list build up because we're not willing to really get the people around us developed to the point that they can take some of those things off of our plate and free us up for more things. So that's more of a tactical approach. Yeah. Oh, Scott, I just read that. New COO to small nonprofit. Oh, bless you. Us nonprofits, we have unique challenges. Not in a bad way, but just there are some unique challenges. So reach out to me anytime, Scott. Love to talk with you. So back to our thoughts and feelings. I just finished a workshop with an organization, and it was interesting because one of the things that came up repeatedly that I alluded to earlier is this idea that that I'm at the effect of other people, that my emotions are created by other people. And we all know up here intellectually that that's not true, don't we? I mean, we know this, but it hasn't made, we still associate our feelings, our emotional responses with what other people do. And in a way, if you think about this, it's like we make other people responsible for what's going on inside of us, which isn't really fair. That's kind of a heavy burden to put on people, isn't it? You hurt my feelings. You made me angry. You made me feel this. You made me feel that. And taken to an extreme, it can be almost abusive. Now, I don't believe anyone here does that. But I do think that when we're unaware of how we place the responsibility of our emotions on other people, how it drives disconnection in the relationship. And so when this happens in the workplace, and this came up in the workshop that I just finished with the company this week, you have one person that's doing something that the other person doesn't like, and it's affecting this other person negatively. And the thing that I'm going to make up something just because I don't want to, I always want to respect people's anonymity. Let's say the person who was upset because someone on her team was constantly not paying attention when she was giving instructions before a shift started. Just not paying attention, kind of like, almost purposely not paying attention to send a message, right? What this person said to me was, my employee is being rude and disrespectful. Rude and disrespectful. Number one, rude and disrespectful are conclusions. They're thoughts that you have about someone else's behavior. That's all. They may be accurate. They may not be accurate. But you are making that conclusion, that judgment, based on your own thinking and your own experience. Someone behaving that way does not have to be disrespectful unless you make it disrespectful. We get ideas from all kinds of places of what disrespect is. No one can disrespect me unless I allow them to. I firmly believe that. And if someone truly disrespects me, like comes up to me and says, like straight up calls me a name and says something very hurtful, I have choices there. And one of those choices is to not be hurt from that and to just address the situation. It is not true that I have to be hurt and angry in order to address something that was unacceptable to me. But we don't know how to separate these things. We don't know how to separate ourselves from our feelings and ourselves from our thoughts. And so we over-identify with them. And so in this scenario, I've got the upset woman and she's upset with another woman because this other woman's not paying attention to her in meetings. And she's determined that it's rude and disrespectful. So I said, okay, so you're having this thought that she's rude and disrespectful. What feeling does that bring up in you? Well, it makes me angry. Good. Okay, so you're angry. First of all, we welcome that angry feeling. We say, we acknowledge I'm feeling angry right now. I am not a fan of pushing away bad feelings because I think they just come back. I think we tell ourselves, especially women, this isn't always true with women, but a lot of the women, I know it's been my experience, I've told myself that it's bad to be angry. It's not polite to be angry. And so instead of telling someone, when you do this, naming the behavior that I can observe, which is when you're not looking at me when I'm giving instructions, it makes me angry because I'm concerned that you're not going to get the safety instructions and it could put your life and other people's lives in danger, right? So that would be a healthy, direct approach. An unhealthy approach is you've been rude and disrespectful, and I want you to stop that. Why? We are basically, when we say you make me feel disrespected, we are actually, disrespect is not a feeling, by the way, it's an action. And so what we are actually saying is, I'm making you responsible for how I'm feeling, and I'm cloaking that in a criticism. I'm calling you disrespectful, but I don't want to be guilty of criticizing because that's not nice. Nice girls don't criticize. So instead, I'm going to make it about my feelings, but I'm going to make you responsible for them. So there's a lot going on with this. When I'm coaching someone like this, and this was in a public setting, meaning she had 8 of her coworkers around her, so I'm only going to go so far. One of the key things when we're having one of these damaging feelings is to not deny it and to not pretend it's not true for us, because it is true for her. For her, she felt disrespected. For her, she felt like it was rude. She's not wrong in that respect because it's her lived experience. But here's my challenge to her and to anyone else that faces this issue. What else can be true that you can believe? And my rule is try to pick something that's a little bit closer to how you want to feel. And I asked her, I said, do you want to feel angry whenever you interact with this person? Well, no, of course not. I don't want to feel angry. How would you like to feel? Well, I would like to feel at peace. I would like to feel like we've communicated. I would like to feel, and I gave her we use this thing called the feelings wheel. So I helped her with her feelings, and she found some feelings words of things that she wanted to feel. I said, now, what kind of thoughts would create that feeling for you? And they have to be thoughts that you can believe. So the key to picking a new thought is not picking one that's pie in the sky, silver lined, right? Here's what that would look like. She was not being rude. She was totally paying attention. I misunderstood, and da, 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 da. Your brain, the BS-o-meter is going to go off if you start doing that to yourself. Positive thinking is wonderful if it works for you. But for most people, the brain is subconsciously going, that's bullcrap. You don't believe that. The way to change your thinking is to come up with an alternate thought that can live alongside the original thought, right? We're not getting rid of the old thought. We're not judging it. We're not saying bad. We're not saying go away. We're saying you're welcome. You can live here. But I'm going to invite a new thought in that serves me better. And so the thought she chose to entertain was, and this was as close as she could get to something she could believe, was maybe my employee's behavior has nothing to do with me. Maybe my employee's behavior has nothing to do with me. She used what I call the super mega awesome voodoo trick, which is she moved to curiosity. She moved to curiosity. Curiosity can also be a question. I wonder why my employee is looking around and seeming like she's not paying attention. I wonder what's going on with her. I wonder, and getting curious causes our brain, it short circuits that anger response, and it allows our brain to be more productive with its thinking. She was at a dead end. She was stuck because she didn't know how to deal with this employee because of this emotional response. And then she kept saying, I know I shouldn't feel this way, and I know it's wrong. And so then what happens is we have the pain of the feeling, the pain of the experience, and then we pile on judgment, and we just become just this cauldron of emotional goo, right? And so instead, what I encouraged her to do was to invite kind of a companion to the original thought. And that companion was, maybe my employee is not doing this. Maybe it has nothing to do with me. And so I said, so what, if you're thinking in those terms, maybe my employee is not doing this to me and it has nothing to do with me. What does it make you want to do? What action do you want to take? And she said, well, I guess it would make me open to asking her what's going on. The action she wanted to take before was to just ignore her. Well, that's not going to solve the problem, is it? In other words, it's not going to take her closer to the solution, closer to what she wants. So I encouraged her to choose a thought that could potentially get her closer to what she really wanted. And in choosing that thought, she was able to then have a conversation. I found this out in between sessions. She was able to have a conversation with the employee, and it went really well. And they had an open conversation. And what she learned was the employee was in these repetitive instructions. The employee felt like she didn't need those instructions every time a shift started. And she wondered if it was possible if only the new people could get the instructions. She just wanted to come to work and get to work. She'd worked there for years and years and years, and was starting to kind of resent being told the same thing over and over again every day, day in and day out, when she already knew what she was doing and she had no safety issues on her record. And it caused her supervisor, the woman that I was speaking to consider that. And they had a productive problem-solving conversation that would have never happened if she was stuck in that victim mindset of, this person is disrespecting me, this person is being rude to me, because it wasn't getting her to what she wanted. What did she ultimately want? She wanted to have a good working relationship with this woman and for this woman to perform. And so that's why it's so important for us to really supervise the way we think, to really manage our thought process. Something else, and if there are other questions or other things folks would want to be coached on, please put them in the comment section. Also, I'm going to, oops, I didn't mean to show that. That wasn't necessary. I actually wanted to copy it. But if you want to learn more about that process, we call it the hula hoop of change. I don't know if I can show this on my screen or not. Let's try. I bet you it'll cover up my face. How much you want to bet it covers up my face? Let me see here. Yeah, it does. But this is what it looks like. This is what it looks like. I'll go right in the middle because that's actually how the hula hoop works. We all have a hula hoop. If you're going to take a screenshot and make fun of me later, now is the time. So we all have a hula hoop, and our hula hoop is made up of the events in our life, the thoughts we have about those events, the feelings that are created from those thoughts, the actions that we take, and then the results that we get. Okay. And I put this little arrow out here with the word meaning, because what kind of happens here in the blink of an eye between an event and a thought is the meaning that we give the event. This is why the woman that I just described, this is why two different people can observe that person's behavior of not paying attention, and one person can just take it at face value and go, oh, that person's not paying attention. And another person can view that and go, that person's being rude, because it means something to different people, but it's the same event. So what is it that's different? Meaning is created by our life experience, our history, our trauma, our upbringing, adolescence, what we learned in school, people that we've come into contact with. And so the meaning that we give something is largely out of our control, but the more aware we become, we can choose new meanings. Listen, you've been practicing the way that you think your whole life. You have been the number one top dog practitioner of the way you think. And you can change the way you think. And it takes practice and effort against resistance. And so what happens is we can enter into this. Think of this hula hoop as like a cycle. That's why it goes around and around and around. And this is a virtuous cycle when it's productive, and it's a vicious cycle when it's unproductive. So what is productive? What's unproductive? Productive is when it's working in a way that it is moving us, or we are moving in a way that we are thinking and feeling and acting in ways that are in alignment with three things: with who we are, who we want to be, so our future ideal self, how we want to show up today, and in alignment with our values. And so that is productive. And that's when we're doing this in a productive way, that's what we're doing. Unproductive is just the opposite. It becomes a vicious cycle when we are less conscious. And when we are less conscious, we are engaging in this entire process in a way that moves us away from who we want to be, how we want to show up, and the results we want in our life. If you've ever said to yourself, why do I keep doing that? Or why do I keep getting this result? Or why does this keep happening to me? I'm not blaming you like, oh, it's your fault. But what I'm saying is there's a subconscious thing going on that moves us in a certain direction, and it cascades, and it starts with our thoughts. And so if we want to interrupt it, we can interrupt it anywhere here. We can interrupt our results in our actions and our feelings or our thoughts. I like to try to get people back to their thoughts because that's going to be a quick win. But that may not necessarily be where you're aware of the things that are unproductive for you. You might be aware in your feelings. You might go, ooh, that person didn't pay attention in the meeting. I'm feeling angry right now. I wonder what that's about. What do I make that mean? Well, I make that mean disrespect. Does feeling like they're disrespecting me get me what I want in this situation? Yes or no? Is it causing me or inspiring me to act in ways I would be proud of? Yes or no? And if the answer is no, then we want to challenge it and pick something new. So this is the hula hoop of change, and the link, I'll put it in there again. We're doing a free workshop where we break this whole thing down. It's next Thursday. This is a Zoom link. You can sign up for that. It's free. You can sign up for either 10 a.m. or noon, so we can have lunch together, or we can have a cup of coffee, or coffee and lunch if you drink caffeine into the afternoon. So that's coming up here in about a week. We have about 15 minutes left. Anyone else have any kind of coaching question? Or Jason, have you seen anything come in that I might have missed? I don't think I see it. Anything from you, Jason? Okay, got it. Got that message. Something else that I'll share that might be useful is a question I got earlier today. And I don't know how many people that are on this live stream might have been on that call because I invited everybody. But I got an interesting question about kind of managing a belief system in like someone who's in a job that they really don't like. And this job that they don't like isn't really aligned with, they're not passionate about this job. And so they're trying to figure out what to do in their career at this point. And they were asking for straight up advice. And as usual, I always start with mindset and a few opinions. Number one, I really side with Simon Sinek on this idea about passion. Passion is built over time. Passion isn't something you wake up with. In fact, I think very few people do. I think there are a few people. My son has been remarkable in that. He's known what he loves and what he wanted to do for a living since he was in probably 9th grade. That's the exception. And I don't know where he got that because he didn't get it from me. Like I've never, I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. Okay. So I think that for people that develop, so the passion that I have for developing others and leadership and professional development has been kind of like an ember that has been growing brighter and brighter for the last 25 years. So that's the first thing that I would share would be that passion isn't, you don't find the job that gives you passion. Passion is created on the inside of you with the way that you show up and what you contribute in life. And then you bring that to the role that you're in. And that creates, it then becomes like self-regenerating. It's not the other way around. It's the same concept as the hula hoop. We're looking for something external to solve a problem that's going on in here. My lack of passion and purpose in my job is a me problem. It's inside. Oh, you're welcome, Scott. Thanks so much. I really appreciate your question. And oh, I'm hungry too. Tell her I'll be over. Just kidding. I hope to see you on the hula hoop session. But when we don't get what we want out of work, now I'm not saying that this means someone should stay in a dead-end job. I'm not saying that. But if we're expecting work to create fulfillment for us in advance, to be the check mark that we're in the right role, we might be waiting a long time. Fulfillment and passion start in here. I'm patting my somewhat chubby belly. And that passion, it starts deep inside of us. And it starts with a commitment to connect our inner and outer purpose to something bigger than ourselves. Inner purpose is just, we exist. You are, that's your inner, and we kind of all share this purpose. Outer purpose is what we do. And our outer purpose, even though we might share an outer purpose with other people, like you could line up 10 marketing directors that have at one company that have the same exact job description. Each one of them is going to do that job differently and bring something differently to that job because of their inner purpose, because the you that is you is bringing the you that is you to your job. And you take that you that is you to everything that you do. Your inner purpose combines with your outer purpose. But unless we can bring those two things together and say, how do these give expression to something bigger than me in my role today, no matter what my role is, we're not going to find passion and fulfillment. And so that's the first concept around finding the job that you just, oh, I just love it. And, when I was in high school, my high school counselor told me, just find a job that you love. Just find a job that you love and everything will be fine. The money will come and you'll have all this happiness and fulfillment. And you know what? Maybe someone out there has found this to be true, but I have found that to be a straight up bold-faced lie. And here's why. There's actually data around this. There was a study done. And I want to quote the study for you. I want to look because I want to make sure I don't get it wrong. It's in this book here. I didn't think I'd be talking about this, but I think this is super, super helpful. There was a study done out of the California, Berkeley, with a professor, Morton Hansen. Okay. And what his survey did is it included 5,000 employees, and then it also included the supervisors of those employees. Okay. And what they did is they asked the employees about if they had high passion, high purpose, low passion, low purpose for their job. And they defined all of that. And I'm not going to go into that, but shorthand, high passion is, I love my job. Okay. High purpose is, I know why my job matters. I've tied it to something bigger than myself. And then of course, low passion is, I don't love my job. And low purpose is, I don't know why it matters. And what they found was, and then they linked those results to performance. So they then got with the supervisors of those 5,000 employees and found out which of those employees were high performers. Okay. And there were all kinds of criteria for performance, and they looked at things like job satisfaction, happiness, fulfillment, all those kinds of things that fed into that have a direct impact on performance. Okay. So here's the summary. And this first part won't shock you. Of the folks that said they have both high purpose and high passion, 80% of them were in the high performing range. Shocker. People that were low purpose, low passion, only 10% of them were in the high performing range. I'm also not surprised at that. But here's what's interesting. Those who said, I love my job, high passion, but had low purpose, okay, I don't know why it matters, only 20% of them were high performers. They were barely better off than the lowest category. But those that had low passion, I don't really love my job, but they knew why it was important, they had a purpose higher than themselves, 65% of them were high performers. This is good news because I don't believe that the vast majority of us are in jobs that we love, because it takes time to get there and to figure that out. And sometimes some folks, because of inequities, because of privilege, because of lots of different things, will never get to have a job that they are just passionate about and that they love. That's truly a privilege. And so this is good news. As leaders, as supervisors, as team members, we can help people find their higher purpose even in a job they don't love. And so that's why I don't believe it's all about passion. Rufus has got a question. So glad to see you on here, Rufus. I see your face in a little bubble there. Suggestions on how to help coaches stay accountable to the goals they've set. Do you mean coaches like at the workplace, or like working with a coach that you've hired to coach you? Can you say just a little bit more about that, Rufus? Or is it like keeping yourself accountable if you're a coach? I do have thoughts on accountability. One of the things I'll share about accountability is there's a difference between holding people accountable and building accountability. Holding people accountable, even though it may not be intended to be this way, can tend to feel like I'm in opposition with someone. Let's say Rufus works for me. I want Rufus to do 15 things by next Friday. And now I'm going to go check on him at 8:00 on Friday morning and say, Rufus, did you do this? I'm going to hold him accountable. It's like I'm pulling him along. I'm making sure, kind of almost lording over him and making sure that things get done. And I'm not saying that there isn't a need for that in the workplace, to hold people accountable. But the goal is to develop people to where they are becoming accountable people. No one on my board has to tell me to work on my strategic goals and the things that I'm supposed to get done this quarter, and hold me accountable for getting that report in on time and sending the financials and doing this, because I'm an accountable person. But not everybody is an accountable person by nature. So we can build accountability in others. And that is a very long conversation, but there is a process, a 4-step process of identifying where people are in that process and then showing up in a way that ensures that they progress to a point where they are becoming an accountable person. But I'm curious what you mean about coaches in particular, on how to help coaches stay accountable. I know in my coaching practice, when I have a client, I don't set goals for clients. The clients set their goals. And I'm more of the steward of the goal. And what I mean by that is, if I have a client that has set, I give them this big questionnaire and they have to set 3 priorities for our coaching engagement, and they need to rank them. And I love that because it becomes sort of like a totem that I can go back to and say, remember, you said this was a priority for you. And so that's why we're going to do this today. And so in a coaching relationship, I feel like it's important for coaches to not set the goals, but for the client to set the goals. And then the coach is kind of I don't want to say they lord over people and hold them to it, but rather they are the steward of them. Say, remember, this is what you said. Is this what you still want? So if that's not helpful, if that doesn't answer your question, let me know, because I need a little bit more context there I feel like. We have time. It's about 6 minutes left. We have time for probably one more question or comment. You can ask anything really, any general question if you'd like about Relā, about myself. Just let me know. On accountability, I think everybody hits a point where they need to be reminded or held accountable for something. I don't think that that's a negative thing. But what a beautiful thing it is as a supervisor, manager, leader, whatever, that someone is letting you know they got something done and coming to you and saying they want to innovate it. They want to do it differently. They want to do more. They want, more responsibility. That's kind of the telltale sign that you've got an accountable person on your hands. I think the mistake a lot of us leaders make, I know I've made this in the past, is we expect people to be accountable people just because we gave them a goal. And it doesn't work that way. That's not how people, adult learning, we don't stop developing in a specific progression just because we're adults. When children learn to walk, there's a typical progression that takes place. Yes. I mean, they first kind of start standing up and they're kind of wobbly on their legs and they realize, woo, I can go vertical. Right. And this is exciting stuff. And they're super pumped about this. But then eventually they fall down and they realize, ooh, this is harder than I thought it was going to be. And they keep trying and that builds their confidence. And then eventually you've got a toddler running around your house, which is a whole other set of problems, right? That toddler is kind of the equivalent of building it's not the same skill set, I understand. But as adults, we go through those same learning steps. So when we are trying to hold someone accountable, when we first hire them or when they're new to a task, the expectation that they are just going to be accountable for that just because we told them, just because we gave them the goal, is unrealistic. It's unrealistic. We have to develop people to that place where they are accountable people. And it's beautiful when they get there because it saves time, it's efficient, etc. So our time is almost coming to a close. Just checking the comments once again, making sure I didn't miss any on YouTube. There we go. Awesome. This is being recorded, and we'll post it again for folks that, if you want to watch it again or you want to share it, we'll put it on our Facebook page. I do want to share with you just a couple things. If you want to connect with us, you can find us online at relayleadership.com or .org, whichever you prefer. And you can find all kinds of learning opportunities on our website, learn a little bit more about the organization, about our staff and our extended consultant staff that we work with. If you want to, for whatever reason, you want to hear more from me and a few special guests that I work with, we have the Slapcast, which is our podcast. You can find it everywhere that podcasts are found. Just search for Relā, RELA, Slapcast, and you will find it. SLAP stands for our four values, which is service, love, action, and passion. And yes, there is a story behind that, and it is in episode 1 and 2 about how we came up with that. So you'll have to listen to that. That is released every other week, and I forget where we are in the lineup if this coming up week is a release date or not, but you'll catch it eventually. Just go find the Slapcast and follow it so that you can check out those episodes. And then once again, the event that's next week is called Change Your Mind, Change Your World. I kept calling it the hula hoop. The hula hoop is the model. The name of the workshop is Change Your Mind, Change Your World. And you really can change your world by changing your mind. And so if you haven't signed up for that, or if it's something that you're interested in, please do. The person you are coaching. Yeah. So that is, so that would be my answer, Rufus, is that where you start is they set the goals, and then you monitor or you steward them. And then if they're doing something that is taking them further away from their goal, I always ask them, is this still a priority for you? Because I'm not their boss, I'm not their advisor. I'm a guide, if you will. And I will call them out and say, hey, what you're doing and how you're talking right now is not in alignment with this goal that you said that you had for our time together. Is this still a goal of yours? And oftentimes that is just enough for them to go, oh yeah, you're right. So I pose it as a question. So I let them set the goal and then I steward it. So that was great. Well, we are we're done. We're out of time. I think we're going to do these periodically. I don't know how often. I'm going to let Jason decide and let me know. I have 2 employees, but like I say, I work for them and I 100% believe that. So I'm going to let them tell me when we're doing this again. But I want to say thank you to everybody who has joined us, who has submitted questions, both in advance and on live on the live stream tonight. And I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful evening. Good night.